My stepsister begged me for help so she could go to college. So you know what? I repaid the favor. Well, years later, she hits it pretty big in the lottery. So I say, you know what? Maybe you can help me with my wedding. She has the nerve to say she's not giving me $1. So I say, you know what? Get out. This is my house and you're not staying here anymore. My name's Simone and I'm currently in my 30s. I should be excited. I'm about to get ready for the most awaited event of my life, except for the fact that something's ruined it. The person who's ruined it is the closest family member I have left, my stepsister, Amy, who's 26 years old, and the most ungrateful person in the world. I know. Who says that about their sister? But guys, she deserves it. To provide some background, my mother died when I was 2 years of age, and my father, John, who had been 25 at the time, took almost 5 years to get back into the dating scene, after a very prolonged period of grief. This eventually led to his meeting and then later falling in love with a woman named Amelia. Amelia was about the same age as my dad and had already had a child from a previous marriage to an army man, who had passed away while serving the country. Her daughter, Amy, was just an infant at the time. They got married after 2 years of courtship when I was 9 years of age. Now, Amelia was a lovely, wonderful woman, and I was way too young to really know my mother before she died. Soon developed an attachment to her. She in turn loved me as she loved Amy, and I found a second mother in her. My father in turn stepped in as Amy's father and made sure to treat her exactly like his own. Now I was 9 years old, and since I had grown up without a parent, while Amy grew up in both of hers, we were a lot different. I'd always been more mature than my age, and with the age gap, we never seemed to have the same set of interests at a time. Our personalities were entirely different, however, we grew up as any siblings did. The younger one, Amy, followed me around, and my older one, well, getting annoyed by her. Even then, I still dearly loved her, and in turn, she loved me. When I turned 19, I left for college in another state. Amy was 10 years old at the time, and I used to come home for holidays and birthdays and special events, but not other than that. She grew up, went to high school, and was almost 15 by the time I graduated, completed my internship, and came back to town. Over the years, Amelia had confided in me that she and my father had always spoiled Amy to excess, and that she was worried that Amy wasn't turning out well. According to Amelia, she was acting out, and she was afraid that Amy had fallen in with the wrong sort of crowd. Preoccupied as I was with my own life at college and having in the mind of the image of the sweetest preteen I'd left behind, I hadn't paid much thought to her warnings. Well, that soon changed, and not for the better. When she was 13, she was caught shoplifting at a convenience store. She had shoplifted a candy bar, and the shop owner who had watched the CCTV footage called the police when he found out. She initially tried to deny it, saying she was going to pay for it but just forgot. But the police insisted on calling her parents. My parents, who weren't poor by any means, were understandably shocked. Amelia called me that night, worried about what Amy was getting up to. She asked me not to tell Amy that she had told me, and I promised not to. 2 months later, Amelia called me again, telling me that Amy had been trying to set a rundown building on fire. She had been let off with a warning for arson, but that was 2 strikes against her. One more and she would go to juvenile detention prison. After this, Amy seemed to quiet down for a while until next year, when it was my father who called me. He was distraught and said that Amy had been caught bullying a girl in her high school 1 year younger than her. She had beaten her up so badly that she broken 4 bones in her body, and the girl's parents were threatening to sue Amy. While my parents were trying to settle the whole thing out of court, this was during my last semester, just before my exams finished, and I raced home to support my parents. I tried talking to Amy, who had morphed into a sulky, angry teen in my absence, about her actions, the wrongness of them and their consequences, but she paid me no heed. In my brief stay home, I also discovered that she was doing hardcore drugs and had taken up smoking, a fact that was still unknown to our parents at the time. I implored her to get clean, but she ignored my offers of help to get clean and dismissed all the advice I gave her. When my break finished, I went back to start my internship and later found out that my parents had paid the other girl's parents off to keep quiet about the incident. They also had to make a sizable donation to the school to keep the matter hidden. I received no calls from Amelia or my father about Amy for the next year, while I finished my internship and I considered the matter settled. After my internship was completed, I scored a job in a big company, with an extremely agreeable salary package and benefits. Before the job started, I had an entire month free. I used that time to go home to my family, and while there, I attempted to spend more time with my sister to make up for all the years that I had not been there. She was still in school and seemed to be doing a little better than the last time I'd seen her. She seemed like she had left the drugs behind, even though she secretly confessed that she still smoked cigarettes and hid the habit from our parents. Our relationship improved over the weeks and the weekends before I was going to leave for my new job. She told me that she was going to a party at one of the senior houses and that she wanted me to come with her. I was glad she trusted me enough to invite me and willingly agreed. We stayed out late and partied and had fun. When we eventually came home at 4 a.m, it was our worst nightmare. Our house was up in flames and there was a fire truck parked outside the house with all the neighbors gathered around. Firemen were trying their best to extinguish the flames, and after half an hour they wheeled out 2 bodies. Our mother and our father. The firemen told us that their bodies were recovered from the fire, and later, the official investigation revealed that they had accidentally left the gas stove on. They'd been rendered unconscious by the fumes of the gases and had not felt much pain. We held the funeral a week later, and all my plans to leave and start a new job had come up in flames with the house. I met with our parents' lawyer, Mr. Booth, after the tragic event, who informed me that my parents had taken out a mortgage for the house to pay for the settlement that they've done with the parents of the girl who Amy bullied, and the donation they made to the school had hurt their finances even more. The bank was going to take property as payment, which basically left me and Amy with no place to call home. I'd only brought a suitcase with me, and so most of my stuff was safe. But Amy had lost everything she owned. To cope with our new financial and living situation, I was forced to give up my lease for the apartment in the city and move back. I worked part-time jobs so I could afford rent for half a year or so. Amy and I rented a cheap apartment near our home and moved in. Amy still had some months till she graduated, and she was not even 18 yet, which meant I had to stay there. At that point, I was panicking about finances and worrying about money being used up and being left on the streets. I applied for all jobs in the area relevant to my field and took the first job I got. It paid almost half of what I've been offered before with no health insurance, and even then I gritted my teeth and took it. The next few months were the hardest of my life, and Amy seemed to have undergone a change and really tried to get her life around in these months. She spent all day and night studying, trying to get her grades back up, and she even stopped smoking and dropped almost all of her friend group. She got really quiet and sad, which was what to be expected. As for me, I threw myself into work. Unbeknownst to Amy, Mr. Booth had told me that we had lost almost all of our parents' wealth, except a house that my father had left to me, and some money that had been left under Amy's name. I hadn't wanted to use Amy's money at all, and as her older sister, I was looking out for her future. I thought that I would tell her about it when she was a little more grown up and could use the money wisely. As for the house, it was a ranch in the countryside that my grandparents had left my dad. It was completely run down, and finding a serious buyer willing to pay us good money would take a lot of time. Essentially, there was no help coming our way. Fast forward a few months, and Amy graduated high school. Afterward, she told me that she had applied to a few colleges and had gotten accepted into nearby one. The problem was that she did not have a scholarship, and even though it was a community college, there were still multiple fees to pay. She said that she had no money put away, as she had wasted her school years, and any clothing or jewelry that she could have sold were lost in the fire. She asked me to fund her college expenses and said that she would pay me back for absolutely everything. I was initially hesitant, as we were doing okay, but not enough to pay for all her fees up front. She begged me to help her, saying that she had no one else and this was her only shot at turning her life around. I remembered the money that our parents had left for her, and I felt bad about using it and not telling her, but there was no other choice. Even with my savings, there was no way to pay her large fee. So I told her that I would take care of it and took the money out from the account left to her. I was able to pay money for all 4 years of her college degree using this method. Luckily, the account generated a lot of interest annually, which really helped. I didn't see her for the entire 4 years of college. When she came back, I thought she would begin an internship or something. Or maybe just go straight into a job. However, when she came back, I realized that she had reverted back to her old days. She looked worn out and tired and showed signs that she was using drugs again. She told me that she was going to take some time out and, quote, find herself. She said that she would stay with me for some time while she found a job, and I hesitated at first, but my love for my sister eventually made me agree. She brushed off my inquiries about drug use and said that she was tired after her time away at college, and she would soon get her old energy back. She did eventually apply for some jobs and even managed to get a job as a barista, but due to her old habit, she never stayed in one place for too long. She was either always fired or left jobs herself after just a few months, with the excuse that these jobs did not suit her and she was still finding out what she wanted to do. So, she spent the next few years mooching off me, while I worked as hard as I possibly could to get by. There were far fewer opportunities in our area for someone with my skill set than in other areas, and that meant my scale was stagnant. Even then, I managed to save up some money. I dated a few people on and off in my 20s and found a steady boyfriend, Adam, who I'd been serious with for quite a while. On our 3rd anniversary, he proposed to me, and I was over the moon with joy and accepted his proposal. After all the hardships life had given me, something good finally came my way. But along with that was the sinking feeling that I did not have enough money to plan the wedding of my dreams. I know that I could have gone for something smaller and less extravagant, but I'd always dreamt of having a big wedding, and after years of pinching pennies and supporting my sister as well, I wanted to do something for myself even if I could barely afford it. And then came a stroke of luck. Amy had a habit of buying lottery tickets. She rarely won anything, but 2 weeks after the proposal, she scratched a ticket and won a sum of $30,000. I could ask her for some of it and use it to fund my wedding and honeymoon. Of course, I was going to pay her back, but the second I brought up the issue, she said that she was the one who had won the money and not me. She said that she never expected me to act like this and that I would come begging for money as soon as she won it. She said that if I did not have the means to get married, then I should just postpone the wedding. She wasn't going to give me charity so that I could waste it on my stupid wedding. I reminded her that I'd taken care of all her needs for the last few years and that I had never asked her for anything in return, just as I had done my best to help her out. She should do her duty and help me out in turn, and her response was to turn away and state that as the elder sibling, it's my duty to do all this, take care of her, and that she never asked me to take care of her anyways. She said that she did not owe me a thing, and that it was selfish and ungrateful of me to ask her to give her money. In turn, I told her to get out, since I was the one paying all the rent and have been doing so for the last few years. She initially refused, insisting that she wasn't going to leave since everything I owned was hers in turn. After some back and forth, I grew angry and threatened to call the police. She huffed and puffed, telling me that fine, she was going to leave and never come back. She said that she had nowhere to go and then tried to guilt trip me, saying that if something happened to her, then it would all be my fault. I told her that if something happened to her, it would be the consequences of her own actions and that I didn't care anymore. I was done with her selfishness and laziness, and I once again threatened to call the police, and after that she finally left. The next thing I knew, she was crashing over at a friend's place, and a day later I felt bad about what I had done and tried to call her. Hoping to apologize, of course. After all, I thought she was still my younger sister, and she picked up the phone and said that she was busy, and unless I was planning on apologizing to her, I didn't need to call her. I immediately ended the phone, and I was worried about the wedding finances, but I shouldn't have been. In the next few days, a man called me saying that he wanted to rent the ranch I inherited for a family vacation. He was willing to pay me in advance, and the sum was substantial and would cover the wedding quite nicely. And so, my wedding woes were completely resolved. Update number 1. I keep thinking about the incident over the next few days. We did not contact each other again, and a week and a half later I had to fly out of state to attend a work conference. I never felt comfortable leaving the apartment empty, so I convinced Adam to house sit for me. I was initially going to go for a weekend, and I was going to leave on Saturday and return early on Monday. But, Adam was going to be staying at the house till then, and Amy somehow found out and contacted Adam, saying that she needed to pick her things up from the house and had to please inform me and make sure I wasn't there when she came to get them. I didn't want to see her either, and wanted to make sure things got resolved with the least amount of fuss, and agreed, packing her stuff and putting it aside for her before leaving. Now, for some reason, and luckily for me, the conference finished early. I got on the flight back to my city Sunday afternoon and reached Sunday evening by 6. I tried calling Adam, but he didn't pick up. I got into a cab and sat down, trying to call him repeatedly, and he did not pick up over 20 calls. Both worried and confused, and I opened up the camera system, which was linked to my phone, and installed in the apartment for safety reasons. I'd gotten the system installed last week, when I found out that I had to leave for the weekend as I knew Adam could not be there all the time. The camera showed Adam lying on the sitting room couch. Another camera showed Amy in the house, setting up her camera in front of the video as if to take pictures or maybe record a video. I turned the video footage back 40 minutes and saw Amy arrive after knocking on the door. Adam left her inside and showed into the living room where her suitcases were kept. She touched him on the arm, laughing and smiling. Then she just simply hurried to the kitchen where I saw her fiddling with some cups, adding water first and then creamer and coffee before taking a small black pouch from her pocket and mixing its contents into one of the cups. She took the cups back to the living room and gave the tampered cup to Adam, who drank it down quickly. His movement showed that he was trying to get her to hurry up and leave. She held up her cup innocently, as if to say that she was going to leave after finishing it. Adam suddenly clutched his head and dizzily walked to the couch before falling onto the exact position that I'd seen him in. I fast-forwarded to the current video to see my sister finishing setting up the camera, then moving towards Adam. A sick feeling came over me. What was she going to do? She starts rearranging his limbs, and then she sat on his lap, putting his arms around her. She put her face close to his, acting like they were hugging and kissing, and from her camera's point of view, it looked like they were hooking up, even though my view clearly showed what was really going on. I didn't really get what she was trying to do or what was going through her mind. I quickly exited the cab after it reached, racing to get upstairs, and I flung the apartment door open, rushing inside, and Amy was scrambling from the couch with her hand over her mouth. She asked me what I was doing here, and I said that it was my house. I should be the one asking the questions. Adam stirred groggily from the couch, and my sister immediately came rushing towards me, tears in her eyes, and she said that I would not believe what happened. That she had contacted Adam to get her things back, and that once she had gotten here he had started hitting on her, trying to convince her to stay, and she said that he had told her that he did not want to get married anymore, that he didn't love me, and was just with me for the pure convenience. She broke down further, pretending as if she had been wronged. Clutching my shoulders, she said that she was so sorry for how she had refused to give me the money, and that she wished that we would put the whole incident behind us and just forgive each other and simply move on. She also asked me to take her side against Adam and throw him out and break up with him this instant. Well, guys, that's when I understood what she was trying to do. She must have lost all the money and was trying to come crawling back into my life and trying to break up Adam and me. My heart broke into a million pieces, and I could not figure out how the sweet little girl I had known before could morph into such a hateful, conniving monster. However, I knew we weren't little girls anymore, and what she had done was entirely serious. I knew how to deal with her, though. I calmly asked her what proof she had that Adam hit on her, and not the other way around. She pointed at her camera, saying that she set it up to take a picture of herself to send to me and that it must have recorded the whole thing by accident. I asked her to show me the footage, and she fetched her phone and showed it to me. Yes, there were multiple pictures that she had taken, most trying to make it show that Adam was pulling her towards himself. I passively looked at the pictures before turning back to her. I slapped her across the face. She looked shocked and clutched her face in surprise, so I slapped her again, telling her that I had installed cameras last week and managed to capture everything from a much better angle. I told her that she had done something punishable and offensive, and that if she did not apologize immediately, I would turn the footage over to the police and let them deal with her. Knowing she was caught red-handed, she dropped to her knees begging. She said that the friend she had been staying with had stolen all the money that she had gotten, and there was no place for her to go anymore. She was homeless as well as broke. She thought by breaking me and Adam up, I would welcome her back into my life, because technically it was his fault that we had fought in the first place. Adam, who seemed to be waking up, got up drunkenly, asking me what I was doing here so early. I explained the entire situation to him, and he was just as appalled as I was. He agreed not to press charges against Amy, but agreed with me that she needed to get out of our lives forever. After a lot of begging and crying, she eventually left with her stuff, and I didn't know where she went and did not want to know either. After the stunt she pulled, it took me some time to recollect myself and move on with the wedding preparations. Update number 2. My sister still did not matter. She did not let it rest, and after a couple of weeks figured out that I was making empty threats about the police. She took to following me around everywhere and trying to screw up my wedding planning. She made sure to never do anything that could be traced back to her, and it was all minor, petty stuff, but she was trying to torture me mentally. The first incident was when I went to a small local boutique to pick up a wedding dress. The designer was a local who handcrafted all of the pieces. When I browsed her collection, there was one dress that I fell in love with immediately, and I chose it. After multiple dress fittings and alterations the week before I was going to get it, the designer informed me that an accident had occurred at the shop last night just before close. A customer walked in with a hoodie and a mask, obscuring their features, and they asked if they could use the bathroom. The receptionist obliged, pointing them towards the door. The person apparently slipped out, went to go undress the section, and tore up the dress that I selected. They had to quietly flee the scene afterward, and unfortunately the shop's camera had failed to capture a good enough shot of the intruder. The camera in front had not been working, and the shop owner even apologized, saying that they would get another dress ready within a week. Knowing that it was probably Amy, I reassured them, asking them not to involve the police and that I would be more than happy with a similar-looking, non-custom dress. I was making my own plan and insisted that they did not follow up on the matter. The next incident occurred at the place where I was getting the invitations done. The invitations were done at the nearby factory, and a shipment was made to the shop every week. The day my invitations were meant to arrive, the place called me up, saying that a fire broke out in the delivery truck, and all the invitations had gone up in flames. Once again, I knew my sister was involved, and her past background of thieving and arson would make such a feat easy for her. Still, I kept quiet, knowing I needed more proof. I knew she would show up at my wedding uninvited and do something to sabotage the evening. I just had to catch her in the action. Final update. The day of my wedding finally showed up, and I finally got married. After we said our vows, my boyfriend Adam gifted me a pretty diamond necklace in front of all the guests, which I showed off proudly. Just then, my sister walked in and demanded to see me. She seemed to be high and under the influence of alcohol or even something stronger. She started shouting at me in front of all the guests, saying that I was a liar and a fraud, and that I tried to steal her money. Surprised, I asked her what she's talking about. She said that she has been talking to Mr. Booth recently, and he had told her about the money that's been left in her name and the one that I'd never told her about. She said that I've been sitting on it for all these years and had most likely been stealing from it. She demanded it back. I didn't want to make a scene in front of the guests, so I pulled her aside and, talking to her in the room where I had gotten ready. I'd been recording a video for my wedding montage, and the camera was still propped up. I discreetly turned it on, and knowing that I would need it, I told her that she was right. There had been money left in her name. She triumphantly told me to give it to her then, or she would file a case against me. I told her sure, I would give it to her, or what was left of it. She asked me what I meant, and I pulled up the trust in the transactions that had taken place throughout the years. I told her that I've taken the money for her college fees from the account. And with all of the deductions, there's only a little over $2,000 left. She shrieked that I tricked her and that I was a liar. I told her that it was no use going to court as I had well-documented records of everything, that she would be wasting the time. I transferred the money to her and told her that our business here was done. With that, I took off the necklace that I was wearing and placed it on the vanity and walked out of the room. Knowing she would try to steal it, I quickly called the cops, who arrived within 5 minutes. I asked them to wait outside, and sure enough, they apprehended my sister as she was trying to sneak out with the necklace. A body search revealed the necklace, and she tried to play it off as if she was trying to keep it safe for me. But I showed the police the footage of her alone in the room, looking around, swiping the necklace. I filed a case against her for theft and also submitted the footage of her and Adam from the apartment. Using all of this evidence coupled with her past history of misdemeanors, I was able to obtain a restraining order against her. And I let my lawyer handle the entire case and never went to court. I heard later that she was jailed for some time for theft and drug possession, but never made contact with her again. So, looks like little old Amy's criminal behavior lands her in the slammer for trying to go ahead and steal that luxury jewelry. I want to know if anybody's ever been in a situation like this watching out there. Have you had your own family member, sibling, mom, dad, step-sibling? It doesn't matter. Have they treated you with the same type of mannerisms? Drop your experience down below in our comment section. And guys, if you're new to the channel, I want to thank you for joining me on today's family drama. My name's Mr. Redito, and yes, I narrate stories every day, so if you just can't get enough stories, make sure to check out all my channels, all my playlists. Everything can be found in the description section. I'll see you tomorrow, and just remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya.